In the year Showa 20, the protagonist Fuko was just in his early 20s. He envied the female bus conductors, not only for their control over the vehicle's movement, but also for their beautiful uniforms. So he resolutely decided to join this profession. However, when Fuko's dream came true, he realized that this job was far from the glamorous image he had imagined. Not only did he have to obey the driver's commands, but he also had to serve the passengers diligently, sometimes even facing harassment and humiliation like a servant. Fuko's route spanned across Tokyo's urban and suburban areas. After passing through the dense suburban forests, the bus would reach an unknown railway crossing. As the conductor, Fuko would get off the bus in advance to check for any passing trains, ensuring safety before signaling the driver to proceed. The daily routine of track inspection quickly washed away Fuko's initial excitement. After some time, he found the job monotonous, dull, and mechanically repetitive. So, in a letter to his sister Chieko in the countryside, Fuko wrote, "Take my advice, never ever become a female conductor." One day in July, Fuko leaned against the bus window, watching the familiar mountains and greenery flash by, feeling an overwhelming emptiness inside. Soon, the bus arrived at the railway crossing. As Fuko got off, he saw a man in a black trench coat lying on the tracks. Not far away, a train was rumbling out of the tunnel. Fuko couldn't help but shout in alarm. The man heard Fuko's call and slowly stood up. He slightly smiled at Fuko with a mysterious expression. Then he calmly put on his hat and walked off the tracks. The train passed by without incident. Fuko found the man's behavior truly strange. His large, blinking eyes were filled with curiosity. After this little episode, life at the White House continued as usual. That day, a shocking news story was published on the front page of the newspaper. At a railway crossing in the western suburbs of Tokyo, a bus unfortunately collided with a train. The driver was injured, and the conductor died. What shocked Fuko was that the deceased conductor was his friend, Swallow. The driver was Swallow's fiancée, Shinko. Upon hearing the news, Fuko bought a bouquet of Swallow's favorite flowers and went to her home to pay his respects. While looking through photos, Fuko discovered something even more terrifying. Swallow's fiancé was the same man he had seen lying on the tracks a few days earlier. From his colleagues, Fuko learned that after the incident, Shinko resigned and left the company. He also heard a strange rumor. This colleague wanted to tell Swallow, but before he could, she had already passed away. It was rumored that a bus company driver had relationships with many women. When he grew tired of his companions, he would kill them one by one. This driver was very cunning, mysterious, and terrifying, never suspected by anyone. However, recently, the Tokyo police were investigating closely. This driver chose to leave the bus company and went to the countryside. Fuko anxiously asked, "Could this terrifying serial killer be Swallow's fiancé?" The colleague nodded, saying he had seen a photo of the man named Gao, and it matched the description in the rumors perfectly. He also mentioned that this rumor only circulated among the female conductors. Because this serial killer was quiet and hardworking, everyone had a good impression of him. The colleague's words stirred Fuko's heart. He couldn't believe such a terrifying person existed. He secretly prayed never to encounter the killer. A few days later, Fuko received a letter from Swallow sent before her death. As he was about to read it, the office suddenly became lively. The station master enthusiastically introduced a new driver named Shinko. Hearing this familiar name, Fuko froze on the spot. His heart raced as he fearfully stared at the tall figure in the sunlight. A gentle voice followed. "I am Shinko. Pleased to meet you." The new colleague bowed deeply to everyone. He appeared polite, as if well-educated. Fuko couldn't help but step forward to see the man's face clearly. But due to his nervousness, he didn't notice the kettle on the ground in front of him and tripped. Shinko gentlemanly helped Fuko up. Through the mist in front of his eyes, Fuko finally saw the new colleague's face. He was Swallow's fiancé, Shinko, the man suspected of being the serial killer. As their eyes met, Fuko felt a burning gaze that seemed to penetrate his soul. The station master, seeing Fuko's expression, couldn't help but joke that he must have been dazzled by the handsome man, causing him to fall. Then the station master announced that starting tomorrow, Shinko would be Fuko's new partner. The sudden news left Fuko stunned. His colleagues thought he was smitten with the handsome man. After all, the dashing Shinko was hard for young girls to resist. After the others left, Fuko opened Swallow's letter again and began to read. In it, Swallow described feeling that her fiancé would kill her. She had heard the rumors and was suspicious of Shinko, but without evidence, she couldn't be sure. Swallow told Fuko that if she ever left this world, not to forget her. But if she was wrong and Shinko truly loved her, and they formed a happy family, not to mock her wild thoughts. Fuko's heart was restless. The next day, with trepidation, Fuko reluctantly accepted working with his new partner. His previously uneventful life suddenly became turbulent. He arrived early at the station to wait for the bus. Unexpectedly, Shinko arrived even earlier. They sat awkwardly on the bench, neither speaking. Shinko lit a cigarette and offered it to Fuko, trying to break the silence. But Fuko, harboring doubts, didn't accept it, deliberately keeping his distance from Shinko. After the bus departed, everything seemed normal. Selling tickets, announcing stops, checking tickets. The only difference was Shinko's reticence, with little interaction with Fuko. Soon, the bus reached the railway crossing. As Fuko was about to get off to check, Shinko stopped him, saying there was no need to confirm. The 12:50 train had just passed, and the next one was at 1:10. "You look left, I'll look right. Be careful." Shinko's voice was deep and magnetic, his tone gentle. Fuko felt as if struck by electricity, too nervous to turn back, softly replying, "Okay." The bus smoothly crossed the tracks. Shinko seemed to have a certain charm, attracting Fuko, who frequently glanced at his chiseled face in the bus mirror. His handsome appearance made it hard to associate him with a killer. That night, in a letter to his sister Chieko, Fuko wrote, "I feel like I might be Shinko's next target. But don't worry, I won't be killed because I know all of Shinko's secrets. I will definitely find his weakness and avenge Swallow." Days went by in a cycle, the only difference being not having to get off at the railway crossing to check. Fuko constantly reminded himself to stay vigilant, trying to catch any suspicious details. Yet his heart couldn't help but be drawn to Shinko. One day after work, a female colleague brought Shinko homemade cookies, shaped like buses. Seeing this, Fuko felt jealous. He dejectedly picked up a cloth and furiously wiped the bus. It turned out that love had quietly arrived without him realizing it. Fuko knew Shinko was dangerous, yet he couldn't help but be drawn to him. Shinko's presence brought new colors to his previously dull life. After that day, Fuko began to approach Shinko actively. They would go to the woods before departure, picking wild fruits and chatting casually. When Shinko offered him a cigarette again, Fuko didn't refuse, choosing to accept it. His tightly locked heart began to open little by little. On payday, the female colleague who brought cookies invited Shinko to go out. Shinko called Fuko over, hoping he would join, saying it would be more fun with more people. Fuko shook his head, as he was independent and didn't like socializing. The colleague told Shinko that Fuko never went out with everyone and never drank. His life was very boring. Hearing this, Fuko felt very sad. He quickly ran forward, not wanting anyone to see his disappointment. The next day, Fuko went to work as usual. But strangely, Shinko didn't show up. The driver was replaced by a burly uncle. At the railway crossing, Fuko was rudely asked to get off and check. Absent-mindedly directing the bus forward, his mind was full of thoughts about Shinko. As a result, he was accidentally hit by the bus. That night, it poured rain. Fuko couldn't suppress his longing for Shinko any longer and ran to his dormitory to find him. They sat at the table, engulfed in a long silence. Time seemed to stand still, and the air was thick with tension. The room was so quiet they could hear each other's heartbeat. Suddenly, Fuko stood up, grabbed Shinko's hand and placed it on his chest, letting him feel his passionate, racing heart. Fuko's blood boiled, and he couldn't help but kiss Shinko passionately, from his neck to his lips. All resistance and defenses crumbled in the face of love. Fuko was deeply involved and began living with Shinko. In a letter to his sister Chieko, Fuko wrote, "I know this is rash, but I can't help it. My boring life finally has an adventure. I know how dangerous it is, but this is destined love." Chieko was worried about Fuko's state and sent a summary of the Tokyo newspaper. Whether Swallow's death was an accident or a love suicide, no one knew. Fuko didn't want to know either. He threw the summary and Swallow's letter into the fire, intending to burn them. However, moments later, he regretted it. He at least retrieved the letter from the fire. Fuko was extremely conflicted. He loved Shinko, but also doubted him. So, the next day at work, Fuko tentatively asked Shinko if he had heard about a ghost haunting the area, a young woman's ghost. The ghost claimed to have been betrayed and murdered by her lover. Fuko asked Shinko if he had heard this story. After a long silence, Shinko calmly replied that it was just superstition. Fuko looked ahead with determination, telling Shinko he believed the story and that a betrayed soul would never rest in peace. That night, back home, Fuko silently watched Shinko, saying nothing. He wanted to confront Shinko directly, asking if he was the killer. Fuko took out a wooden box containing Swallow's letter. Shinko noticed Fuko's thoughts and approached him. Fuko hurriedly put the box away. Shinko pretended not to see anything, taking out a bottle of wine, 2 empty glasses, and a packet of white powder from the cabinet. He sprinkled the white powder into the glasses and suggested playing a game of courage with Fuko. One glass was poisoned, and drinking it would lead to eternal sleep. Shinko let Fuko choose first. Fuko remained silent. In a nearby glass bottle, 2 moths fluttered, repeatedly hitting the glass, trying to break free and fly towards the light. After some thought, Fuko mixed the 2 glasses together, then divided them equally, refusing to leave it to fate. They could face death together. Shinko took the glass and drank it all. Then he drank Fuko's glass too. In Fuko's shock, Shinko lay down on the ground, said goodbye, and calmly faced death. Fuko, in a panic, threw himself onto Shinko, shaking him vigorously. The pale moonlight outside shone on Shinko's thin face, making it appear ghostly white. Fuko cried in fear, thinking he had lost his lover. Then Shinko slowly opened his eyes, speaking in a calm, slightly reproachful tone. "I told you it was just a test." Fuko ran outside in anger. After calming down, he made a bold decision. At this moment, the moths in the bottle finally flew out, circling the dim light, causing the shadows in the room to flicker. That night, in a letter to his sister, Fuko wrote. He delivered the letter to his sister overnight, instructing her to open it the next day. The 2 moths inside the room changed direction, flying towards the brighter fire. Suddenly, there was a sound like a thunderous explosion. The next day, his sister sensed something big was about to happen and rushed to the bus company where Fuko worked, but she was a step too late. Father and Shinga's car just set off. At the end of the letter, Father told his sister, "If I get killed too, then you're the only one who knows. Please don't forget me. My life was tragic and lonely, but at least I fought against fate. And you absolutely must not take the same foolish path as I did." On the bus, Father stood beside Shinga, looking resolutely into the distance, determined and unwavering. He deliberately placed Swallow's favorite lilies in front of the bus and told Shinga that these were his good friend's favorite flowers. Shinga didn't respond after hearing this, but as they passed through a tunnel, he got distracted and almost collided with an oncoming car. In the evening, a heavy rain began to fall from the sky. The dense forest seemed to darken. A cool breeze blew through, and the leaves of the dead creek swayed gently. The bus arrived at the railway crossing. Due to the low visibility, Shingao could only let the father and son get off to check. The father and son walked heavily towards the door. He didn't get off, but turned to ask Shingao if he was tired of him, just like he was tired of Yanzi. This sudden question left Shingao at a loss. He murmured, "How could you think that?" Immediately, Shingao called out to Zhengyu. The father and son who got off the bus saw that a train had just passed, and the next one wouldn't arrive so soon. He told the father and son to check the left side as before, while he was responsible for the right side. The father and son turned to look into the dark tunnel, a sense of danger rushing towards them. Suddenly, a light appeared at the end of the darkness. Distant and silent, gradually becoming clear. It was as if a sharp sword had pierced directly into the father's heart. The father's strong face was wet, as if he was ready for the end. He calmly told Shingao that they could go. Shingao chose to believe, pressed the accelerator, turned the steering wheel, and started moving forward. Immediately, the sharp and piercing whistle of the train tore through the night sky, followed by a violent crash and the sound of shattering glass. When everything calmed down, Shingao struggled to crawl to the father's side. With his last bit of strength, he asked, "Are you okay?" After speaking, he closed his eyes forever. This was the last sound he left for the father. The next day's newspaper published an article like this. Was the strange coincidence a traffic accident or just a coincidence? The driver died, the conductor was injured, is the sex demon killer finally finished? No one knew the answer, and no one could prove that Shingao was the sex demon killer. At the end of the story, the reborn father and his sister sat by the seaside. The father asked his sister to place her hand on his belly, feeling the movement of the new life inside. She faced the gentle sea breeze, her face full of relief. The new life belonging to the father had just begun. The film ends. The title Dream Galaxy was released in 1997. The entire film was in black and white, with a touch of eeriness amidst the beauty. A tranquil summer, serene moonlight, misty mountain forests. Everything was so dreamlike.